before I start this episode of Artists Highlighted, I want to start with a bit of a story. One that I guess is kind of an interesting thing, I guess. When it comes to SHINee and Jonghyun, there's a lot of deep roots, but maybe not as much flowers up top. And what I mean by that is like I probably don't have as much content on them as I should or wish. And in fact, I'm actually thinking, just like I did in the very first time that I ever did this, sometime maybe in December. I know it's a long ways out, but I think about this because it's the first time I did it, was I did a memoriam for Jonghyun. And that was in my very first year of doing the channel. So I thought maybe it would be kind of interesting to do like a 1-week club for SHINee again and start it all over and go through it now. If that's something that you're interested in, please let me know. Because of that, what I just explained, I had to do something that sometimes I'm not great at. And that is coming face to face with emotion and hard topics. I'm usually one of those people that I admit I'm a people pleaser. I know this. And the other thing that I know too is I try to do my best from staying away from hard to talk topics. And when I decided to do this, I knew that I wanted to do Jonghyun specifically because of the fact that in a lot of senses, the whole structure of the channel comes from my interactions with his music. And so for this whole week, I'm going to apologize in advance if I get a little bit teary-eyed. But I realized at how much I had forgotten. So this whole week, with a friend of mine sending me suggestions and her favorite music from him, I was able to rediscover and reestablish my feelings towards Jonghyun. So I'm not going to try and make this sad. I want this to dwell on the artistry as much as I possibly can. But I think the interesting thing is that needs to be said first and foremost before I bring up anything is that Jonghyun continues to break tons of molds for me on this channel. This is video 1800, and totally something that would happen. So perfect timing. Anyway, I spent a lot of time in the last 2 or 3 weeks listening to everything that I found that it was written by him. And so you might not see a lot of stuff that will have music videos because the biggest thing that I found in this story was that a lot of the stuff that really struck me were B-sides. And I know that here on the channel and in the comments, we kind of know that B-sides kind of are the rule and not the exception in quality. And so we're going to go over some stuff. And I have quite a few songs that I want to use as examples of things that I like about his writing. So let's go on with it. Our first song that I want to talk about is Hallelujah.
오, 세상에 이럴 수가. 오, 너무 아름답잖아. 뭐랄까, 너를 끌려 더 표현하기 힘. 오, 너라는 명작. 여자들의 적 남자들의 표적 넘을 수 없는 벽 성스러운 완벽 신께 감사하네 천사가 보여 눈물이 고여 할렐루야 천사가 보여 눈물이 고여 감동이 넘쳐 할렐루야
And one thing that I love about this particular song when it comes to the writing is the fact that when it comes to this particular song, he wrote this in a way that feels in line with a lot of Hallelujah and that kind of music, you know, like Hallelujah from, a lot of people know it from Shrek, but I'm going to be talking about the Leonard Cohen song. Has some DNA here that obviously they pull from a particular section of music that really ends up helping out the sound and helping it identify with what he's trying to say here. Now, the theme that I have found that I absolutely love about his songwriting is he is very emotionally intelligent. It is incredible at how much he really ends up striking so many interesting chords that I don't really find too much with other writers. Now, I specifically made sure that all the songs that I found were primarily written. Some of them might have some help with someone, but most of the stuff was done by Jonghyun. So anyway, moving on for just a second here.
보다 큰 감동을 주네 기도하듯 노래하게 해 Singing hallelujah You got me singing hallelujah
You got the choir, big open sounding space, reverberation, big spacey percussion, synthesizers putting in the work, choirs, and everything that you kind of expect with a name like Hallelujah and music. And to me, this is when I first heard this song, I thought to myself, there is more to this man's writing than I ever expected. The next song that really started to strike me in this is actually the song Moon. And one of the reasons why this really struck me is because, again, one thing that I really love about his style is the emotional aspect, not just by the lyrics that he's writing, although we will talk about that, but is by how he constructs his sounds. And this song really kind of strikes it really good. It's deep, it's low, it's slow, it's kind of a nice slow burn, but then when it gets to the chorus, it's this massive explosion of sound, and it's this great crescendo of emotions.
수천 개의 달 또 하늘 위에 강 내가 만든 거야 괜찮아 버려줘 I take you to the moon I take you to the moon 이리처럼 talk to me baby talk to me baby talk to me baby 빨갛던 상상에 더 과한 것도 돼 오직 내게만 talk to me baby talk to me baby talk to me baby
I think the interesting thing is about this song is, sure, there might be some ideas of maybe some promiscuity. I feel like, weirdly enough, there is nobody I have ever met or known about where I feel like just immediately I feel like that I can just latch onto his thought process in some ways. And to me, the idea of him just I feel like that what he's truly wanting and what he's truly singing about is gaining that deeper connection, and oftentimes that does resolve with some frolicking of the fun to keep it PG. But the thing that I love about this song is this is one of those ones where it truly shows you these small details and the texture that he's putting into this, which I personally I really like. Like right here, excited to know what dream it is. The thousands of moons, the river above the sky. I made it all. And the thing that I find so interesting is this is very descriptive in a very classic literal sense. So for me, when he says like the river, the moon, I made it all, my thought process is like, you know how there's the old saying that says like, what do I got to do to make sure that, you know, we're together and bring, you know, get you the moon, you know, give you the moon. And I think that that's kind of what he's building upon, is like the idea of like, I made it. I got you the moon. I got you the river. And the interesting thing is all this is kind of just an allegory of kind of wanting that deeper connection with the person. And I don't know what it was about this song, but I just think that this chorus here really strikes that chord for me. And I think the interesting thing is, I think sometimes as a guy, I can say this, where sometimes there's where you give all your effort, and sometimes it's not reciprocated. And you know, that's life. I'm not fishing for any sort of sympathy, but I find it interesting because I feel like that when he's like, I'll take you to the moon. So it's like, not only did I go and make it, not only did I come and bring it, I will take you there. And it's just a very descriptive, very proactive way of thinking. The next song that I actually want to bring up is Inspiration. The reason why, to me, this song is so interesting is because this is where he starts using his actual intellect, not that the other ones weren't, to actually project kind of more or less what he's feeling in this song. And it's actually a wild ride. If you use over-the-ear headphones, it's really cool. And this right here, this is what gets me. He purposely writes this song that is meant to kind of confuddle the mind. There's a lot of interesting, offbeat, and kind of what seems to be nonsensical instruments. And if you're wearing headphones of any kind, you can kind of tell that he's doing the like the 8D sound effects with this particular part, which kind of goes on with the theme of the song, which again lets me kind of know that there is something more here. All of this in And I love that because it makes it feel like that this song is an audio illusion, which is kind of a huge departure from the other stuff that I've been talking about and will talk about. But I think this just kind of goes to show you the depth. And next I wanted to actually bring up is honesty. I have a lot of music that really, really inspired this.
둘, 셋. Yeah. 잠을 쫓아 졸린 눈을 떠 잠시 후면 또 내일이야 깜짝할 새 지나간 하루가 허무해 가슴이 모래 삼키지만 정신없이 시간이 흘러 두근대던 우리 감정이 익숙해져 당연하듯 느껴질까 괜한 걱정에 서러워 소홀해진 인사들 덤덤히 상처 줬을 행동들 아프게 하려 한 게 아닌데 매번 미안한 마음만 늘 그 자리에 있어 날 지켜줘서 늘 내가 받을 비난 대신해서 아무 말도 없이 날 감싸준 내 모습을 이제 내가 거울처럼 비추려 해.
And I love this song because it's a reflection, and it's contemplative, and in a sense, even though in a sense it's kind of a sad song, and kind of interesting how we bring up certain facts, it's still kind of cozy. And this is where kind of when I was doing all my listening and doing all my studies for this, that I started to notice this trend specifically with his kind of writing.
소홀해진 인사들 덤덤히 상처 줬을 행동들 아프게 하려 한 게 아닌데 매번 미안한 마음만 늘 그 자리에 있어 날 지켜줘서 늘 내가 받을 비난 대신해서
I notice that with him, there is always a sense of longing in the music that he writes. Even when it's something that's upbeat and fun, sometimes, a lot of times, a lot of them have this really kind of interesting underlying feeling where there is a deeper emotion that is trying to reach out of it. And this is where I started to notice kind of my personal connection, where I think this is actually why I have grown to really enjoy his music as a writer.
우리 처음 만난 날엔 가슴 뛰어 감출 수 없는 눈물 고마운 만큼 넘쳐서 나보단 나를 이해해서 내가
Deeply intimate, deeply emotional, and it's so interesting at how he handles this. And personally, this is where 234 actually comes in very strongly.
소홀했는데 이제 보니 같이 있으면 그저 애들이구나 생각도 못하게 바빠 지쳤을 텐데 다들 그때처럼 투덜거려도 다 나왔구나 하고 지내 또 어떻게 지내 한 번은 있다가 묻고 지금은 옛날 얘기나 해줘 그게 언제야 얘기도 해 만날 때마다 해 듣고 한바탕 또 오고 술잔을 채우고 들어자 언제든 오케이 조금씩 올라오는 지
This is where I realized, oh, he feels like me, especially with nostalgic things. And again, it's one of those moments where I realized at just how much, at how much he had actually been effective in my own personal psyche even before I even really knew his music. And that's when it kind of started to get a little bit interesting. I shouldn't say a little bit. It started to get really crazy. I sat there and thought to myself, there's no way that this is actually like something I feel like that I would write about and that I would feel so much so. And I just thought to myself, there is absolutely no way that I could have ever predicted this. Like I said, from the very beginning, I felt just this strange connection to Jonghyun. And to me, when I got to this song, it kind of confirmed a lot of things. It's his feeling towards nostalgia. It's his outreach. It's his emotions. And I realized that he kind of was going through, I feel like, a lot of the similar things that I felt, especially somewhat recently, as I bring this up fairly frequently, but this makes sense here. When nostalgia becomes a really powerful driving force and feeling, and it's really a lot of times something that I find really hard to escape, and sometimes I feel that I dwell on it, and maybe even a little too much. And to have that be so prominent in a lot of the music that he wrote made me just feel like that I understood him just a little bit more. And coming down to the home stretch, obviously this song was going to play a role. If you didn't think that this song was coming up, I don't know what to tell you. So let's go over specifically, I love the chorus to this.
너와 난 착각 속에 서로를 가둬둔지 몰라 아니야 너는 날 이해 못해 걱정 어린 네 눈을 볼 때면 Baby I'm so lonely so lonely 나는 혼자 있는 것만 같아요 지친 널 볼 때면 내가 너에게 혹시 짐이 될까 많이 버거울까 Baby I'm so lonely so lonely 나도 혼자 있는 것만 같아요 그래도 너에게 티내기 싫어 나는 혼자 참는 게 더 익숙해 날 이해해줘
I think one of the things that I find so striking about this is I've made really no qualms about my own personal situation. And again, I'm not trying to fish for sympathy. But, you know, I think this just kind of is everybody in a lot of ways. But I know that I've especially felt this, and is the loneliness. And obviously he had a little bit of a difference because I remember hearing a quote once that the worst thing about feeling as alone is that it's not because you don't have anyone around you. It's not that you don't have anyone around you. It's the fact that they just don't get you. And sometimes that misunderstanding can really bring on a lot of problems. And I think that the interesting thing is, in talking with my friend who sent me some of her suggestions, one thing that I remember I came to the conclusion to, and I just remember it felt like it made so much sense to me, is that when I got done with this, my first thought was, Jonghyun, to me, is the Chester Bennington of K-pop. And not because of how things ended, but because of the fact of the way that he wrote his music. It always seemed like that it was always outreaching. And I find it interesting because I feel like that when you go back and listen to it, it is kind of a clear sign that he was that person. Just somebody who was so deeply emotional and intelligent and so good at writing at how they felt, and it was able to relate to so many people, and it was able to make such an impact on so many people's lives. I actually have something that I wrote down, and I don't want to mess it up because it was just too good of a thought. This was the question posed. Was how would you explain his writing style? And I thought to myself, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to let it flow without thinking. And this is what I wrote. I said, Jonghyun's writing style is deeply not political. Jonghyun's writing style was deeply introspective, poetic, and emotionally raw. Whether in his lyrics, prose, or personal reflections, he had a way of weaving vivid imagery with profound emotions, often exploring the themes of love, loneliness, self-doubt, and the search for meaning. And, I mean, here, let's be real here. If you listen to Linkin Park, it kind of sounds like some very similar topics. And then I just realized that is maybe the reason why I feel like that he's been in my life for even longer than I have even known. Because this is it. This is how he wrote. And it's so similar to, I think, what we all have felt at some point in time in our lives. That, to me personally, the interesting thing is a lot of times when I do these, I talk about, the song and the voice being a storyteller. But when I got done with this, my first feeling was, this is all about his writing. And I don't think I've ever dug so deeply into somebody's actual discography of what they write and the feelings that it produced, and understanding where he was coming from, where he was at the time, and having these little bits and pieces of what he was reflecting in his own life outward in his music. And to me, I think honestly that he should never be forgotten. I think the other thing is that this is somebody that we are privileged to be able to have and have access to, his music, his thoughts, and his impact. And I just don't think that there's any way that we would be in as good of a state if it wasn't for Jonghyun's contribution to K-pop. Whew. And I just feel like that's been a pretty long time where I feel like that I was peering into somebody's mind, that I just kind of felt like that I was looking into a mirror. And it's not like I'm saying that I'm as good of a writer as Jonghyun. That's not even close. He's way outclasses me. But the sentiments are there. The feeling is there. The intention of what I always liken it to what I want to put into my music. And personally, my personal feeling is that I want to be as able to understand my emotions as he did. And the idea of listening to his music to see what his style is. And I think the most beautiful thing about it is, in a lot of ways, it's him. That's what he wrote about. What he wrote about was what was important and what was on his mind and what was in his emotions. And I think that being able to be as in touch with your emotions as he was is an incredible feature. So anyway, I hope this all makes sense. I'm thinking about this from my own personal writing standpoint and thinking how I can apply it to myself. And it's been something that I will actually go back a lot and apply to my own writing styles. So anyway, this is the end of this wave, and I'm so glad that I decided to do Jonghyun and reestablish my connection to him, because it's been a fascinating one. So now that we're done with this phase, if you've made it this far, I'll tell you who the next phase is. If you haven't seen the post already, the next phase is going to consist of Woozy from 17, Chen of EXO, and Ilkun of B2B. And we'll keep digging in and giving these people and artists highlighted that deserve so much credibility. And honestly, I'm actually kind of curious, if you've made it this long and you're in this deep, I'm curious, could you leave me some recommendations of people who you think deserve to have an artist highlighted? I'm curious to know. Anyway, thank you all so much. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, Victus. 1800. Whew.